Hello everyone, surprise, surprise. Welcome to my Halloween bonus. I noticed everyone on YouTube is doing their Halloween themed videos and I thought, well, why don't I join in? And when you really think about it, is there anything more truly frightening than a tier list? Especially since a member of the Discord, Cold Comfort, put together this nice template for us all to use and people have been submitting their tier lists on Discord and I thought, well, rather than arguing about it for 2 hours on Discord, why don't I make a video about it? Because this would be a really cool opportunity to talk about the Cave library and compare the games to one another in a nice compact fashion, because otherwise it can be a pretty daunting task to try and compare all these games to one another in a real serious type of video. And so the first thing that I want to say is that even though I have grown tired of this whole trend of tier list making, especially since it's gotten way out of hand and people are making tier lists about random things that aren't even video game related. Like I saw this guy did a tier list on the United States and they dared to put Idaho as the bottom state. May they burn in hell for that.
Not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! Out of my eyes!
So even though I think this whole tier list craze has gotten really stupid, I do think this could be a fun exercise just to talk about the pros and cons of each game and to compare them to one another in a casual, easygoing manner. This is not super serious. This is not the definitive statement of the Electric Underground on which cave games are better than one another. And also remember, I am a massive cave fan. I am very high tier cave fan. If you put tier list of cave fans, I'm definitely S tier for sure. And so I do love all these games in their own weird ways. Try not to take this like I'm trying to bash certain games if they end up lower on the list when I compare them to one another. And just to underline that fact, I decided let's begin the list, the true cave tier list as provided by Jamers himself. Bam. There you go. Video over. All of them in S tier except B-Storm that ends up in C tier. This of course is a fun little meme that Jamers put out. But I will say it's not really that far off of the truth when you talk about cave games in comparison to other shmups. I wouldn't put all cave games in S tier in comparison to other shmups, but when you look at the overall genre, I would rate cave games, even the lesser cave games, very highly when you compare them to the rest of the genre. But with that being said, let us return to the first tier list. So today I'm going to give you 2 different tier lists. The first tier list is I'm going to try to be objective-ish. Emphasis on the ish, where I'm going to be trying to rank these games a little bit objectively in that what I've observed other people's opinions over the years about the amount of content that has surrounded these games, the amount of effort around the games as far as score play, their popularity for score play, just the general opinion among shmup fans and shmup players, what I've seen Japanese players talk about, all that sort of stuff. So I'm trying to give you sort of a feel of what cave games sort of stand out and what cave games are a little bit more highly regarded in comparison to one another. But like I said, a lot of these games are very underexplored, and so it's not like just because right now this is the way it looks, in the future we could see massive shifts where maybe games that are a little bit underappreciated now end up becoming more popular in the future, or I'm just stupid. It's not all set in stone. This is just what I've observed. So again, just take it easy a little bit. And just to give you a heads up, the second tier list will be the Mark MSX favorites tier list. So this first tier list you're going to see are not my favorites, or it's not necessarily supposed to be around what I like. And you'll see a big difference between my favorites and what I'm trying to sort of report as a bit more objective. So Death Smiles. Death Smiles is a very important shmup. I believe it is one of their most successful ones commercially, if not their most successful in terms of home console releases. Probably in the arcades as well. I could see it being massively popular. Death Smiles is an excellent shmup. It has a lot of score play attention. A lot of people talk about it. I do think it is fairly influential in the world of horizontal shmups. It is personally my favorite horizontal shmup. But again, I'm trying to leave my personal opinion out as much as I can. I think Death Smiles would land in the A tier as far as cave games. I do think it is one of their higher tier premium games that they ever made. After that, Dodonpachi, DFK, or Resurrection. And I do like the Western title Resurrection, by the way. I know we're not supposed to say they're Western titles because they're like not allowed, but I do want to make an exception for Dodonpachi Resurrection because I think the Western title is actually super cool, whereas most of the other Western titles of cave games are not that good. I need to learn not to hover where it's going to end up. I think DFK also belongs in the A tier. I think in past, you might have put it in the B tier, to be honest. Maybe even 5 or 6 years ago, it ended up in the B tier. But over the past 5 or 6 years, DFK has definitely risen in popularity. When I did my little popularity shmup poll, which was not completed because I didn't get all 300 votes, I got like 150 votes. But when I did my popularity poll, it was pretty clear that DFK was the most popular shmup being played right now. Almost everyone put it in their list, and it was also very high in a lot of people's lists. So DFK is definitely one of the most popular cave shmups. A lot of people will point it out as their favorite cave shmup, and it is very versatile. It has all the different modes. It has the black label mode. It has all the arranges, all of them very popular for score play. This thing is a beast. Definitely belongs in the A tier. And it's also friendly for newer players. It's a game that a lot of people recommend, like Death Smiles, for newer players. It's a great entry point into the genre. Dodonpachi. Oh boy. So I'm just trying to fight my personal bias here. Dodonpachi, objectively speaking, you all know this is my favorite shmup, but objectively speaking, it could land in the S or A tier. It has some flaws in the game design, flaws that I don't personally mind that much, but like the bees, the very strict chaining, some of the stage design is a little funky, some of the bosses have really exploitable glitches, all that I think is magical, but probably being objective, I would still put it in the S tier, though we'll see where it shakes out in the S tier, just because the amount of dedication and score play to Dodonpachi is insane. In fact, just before the score glitch bounty was discovered a few years ago, there was the glitch, the famous glitch in Dodonpachi that was kept secret for over a decade by like a group of Japanese players like the Score Yakuza. And it was actually a huge amount of drama trying to get this glitch out to the rest of the world. And there was articles written on Japanese magazines and stuff about it. It was a pretty big deal. So there's a lot of prestige to Dodonpachi, the original DDP. I also think it was a breakthrough game for Cave. When you look at Donpachi compared to Dodonpachi, I think Dodonpachi set the tone for the rest of Cave afterward. It's just too much of a legendary release to put anything below S, in my opinion, even putting my biases aside. We'll hang off on some of the other ones here. Let's do Muchi Muchi Port. Now, I personally think this is a cool game, but if I'm being honest, as far as reception, as far as popularity, as far as longevity among fans, it wasn't really that well received among the Japanese players from what I understand. It's not really that popular for score play. It wasn't popular commercially, though I do think it's underrated. So I think it belongs in the B tier. These are all factors that we're trying to factor in, not just, oh, I really like it or it's really cool. We're trying to factor in all these different things. Gwange, if I'm saying that correctly, it should be like, it should go down a tier just for its name because it's always pain in the butt. I think Gwange also belongs in the B tier. You'll see in my personal list how I feel about Gwange in my personal list, but I think objectively speaking, even though people love the score play of it and its score play is very popular, it's kind of held back by its counter stop and its boss milking, which get a little bit absurd, especially the big spider cat or whatever it is. So I think because of those issues, and also some of the level design is a little bit wonky, like you fully recharge all your lives in the last stage. There's all kinds of things that make it kind of funky. The final pattern is weird, but overall, very innovative, very cool game. Never really lived up to its potential, I don't think, as far as sequels and becoming a series. I think it deserved it, but it didn't really get that treatment. So I think trying to be a little bit more objective about Gwange, it's probably in the B tier. Not quite a heavy hitter, but still very solid. Remember, these are compared to one another. So if you put like any shmup next to Gwange, it would destroy them. But compared to fellow cave games, I'd say it's B tier. Esperade's an interesting one because it's hard to know how influential this shmup is. I would think it's actually incredibly influential because it's basically, from what I'm understanding, one of the first shmups, if not the first shmup, to do the whole Toho thing of flying in the air, humanoids flying. Also, the art style is amazing. Came up with a scoring system that ended up influencing stuff like Crimson Clover and Ketsui. It had a lot of really fantastic ideas, and I think it was a strongly influential shmup, though it didn't get a home console port for a very long time, which is a little bit suspect. And I do think its popularity was later eclipsed by the Espgaluda games. So I think as much as I love this is a kind of painful to do, but as much as I love Esperade, more objectively speaking, it probably belongs in the B tier of the library. And then speaking of, since it goes along with it, Espgaluda 1, definitely A tier. I think Espgaluda 1 is the quintessential A tier shmup. I guess I'll have to... I think this is actually a correct order to Death Smiles, then DFK, then Espgaluda. You might be able to... I still think Death Smiles is a little bit over DFK. Espgaluda, the bullet time mechanic, just honing in all the different elements. It's incredibly popular. Everyone loves Espgaluda. I think it was very popular in arcade. It got a sequel later on, which is a pretty big deal. That means it was somewhat successful. If Cave made a sequel to it, that means it was somewhat successful. Espgaluda, I think the quintessential A tier, has a fantastic arrange mode on the PS2 port, by the way. And there's a little bit of Mandela effect with this game, where I always think there is a 360 port. Like, I cannot rid that notion from my mind, and I swear I've like seen it before. I swear I've held it in my hands, but no, it doesn't exist. For the love of God, there's this really powerful Xbox 360 Mandela effect on this thing where I think there's some kind of port for it. Ketsui's easy. Ketsui is... Oh, so where is F tier? No, come on now. Of course, and it belongs... Like, to the left is better, right? And to the right's, like, worse. Ketsui, obviously S tier. I have a whole spiel about Ketsui, but yeah, it's an incredibly well-made shmup. So many people are influenced by Ketsui. And the funny thing is that there is no direct sequel to Ketsui, though there is the Ketsui-ish arrange in DFK, which is really cool. Shoutouts to DFK. But even though Ketsui does not have a direct sequel, I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to over the years, and I've asked, what is your favorite shmup? So many of them have said Ketsui, and these are world-class players, game designers. I know Boghog, his favorite shmup, he makes Astra. His favorite shmup is Ketsui. I think Danbo, Blue Revolver. He mentioned Pork actually influencing Blue Revolver, but he also mentioned Ketsui, and I think Ketsui is his favorite shmup as well. It's massively influential. It's got so much style, the soundtrack, the gameplay. It's the total package. Also has this fantastic PS4 port, one of the best ports ever made, and arguably the best Cave port. Probably is the best Cave port as well. So Ketsui is just a beast. I don't think there's any arguing it off of the S tier in my opinion. Pink Sweets. What do you do with Pink Sweets? This is called How Sad Do We Make Plasmo Day. One of Plasmo's favorite shmups, if not his favorite shmup. I don't know where listen his favorites, but I know it's one of his favorites, and he has the world record in it. A Western player with the world record in a Cave shmup is very unique and very cool. I think Pink Sweets is really underappreciated. The thing about Pink Sweets that's a problem is the whole suicide glitch and all that sort of stuff. I think that there is a lot of potential in Pink Sweets where if we got another port by someone like M2 and they really fleshed out a really powerful arrange mode or some balance patches that weren't busted like the 360 port, I think Pink Sweets has an insane amount of potential. I think it is one of Yagawa's most ingenious games. I don't know about his best or anything like that, but you can feel a lot of brilliance going into this game and all the crazy things he did with it. It is a hell of a beast. However, like Pork, not super popular, sort of a flop. It also has a very meh 360 port, hasn't been anywhere else. Cave doesn't seem to really acknowledge it all that much or seem to do that much with it. I don't think we'll see much activity on the Pink Sweet side of things for a very long time, unfortunately. So because of those factors and it's sort of not being able to live up to its full potential, I think it belongs in the B tier, even though it is an excellent game. SDOJ, this one is interesting to rank. I'll start doing this just to mess with you. I could see a lot of people wanting SDOJ up in the S tier. A lot of people argue it is one of the best Cave games as far as just straight up gameplay and everything like that. The presentation's also really good. But I don't think it belongs in the S tier. I think it belongs in the A tier. It definitely maybe top of the A tier like that. It's definitely one of Cave's more premier shmups. Incredibly popular. Kayar did a whole interview with the world record holder, and he can't put the game down. But I do think there is some problems with S2J that hold it back from being purely S tier. I don't think the scoring system, as cool as the overflow glitch is and everything like that, I don't know about the scoring system, and some of the just overall game design is very excellent, of course, but I don't think it quite touches that S tier level design and stage design and just overall quality, though it is very high A tier. That's where I would do S2J. Now, maybe if there was a better port and I had more time to sort of sink my teeth into it, and it also became more popular, you know, I could see it moving up into S tier in the future. But for now, until we see maybe a better port or more overall interest in the game, I think A tier is a very fair placing for it. Original Mushi, easily S tier. So Original Mushi is an interesting game because it is excellent in many, many ways. The visuals are brilliant. The whole concept of being the bug in the forest, that was pretty groundbreaking in my opinion, and it went on to influence a ton of different games. And a lot of people have been very influenced by Mushi outside of the genre of shmups. Like, I remember I interviewed the guy who did the Demon's Tilt pinball game, and he mentioned one of the main inspirations for that game was Mushi Hime-sama because it has some shmup elements in it. It's incredibly popular among non-shmup fans. It's a great crossover for the Toho players to get into shmups. I know Juju Kenobi, when he talked about going from Toho to getting into Cave games, Mushi Hime-sama was the crossing point. I think it's a crossing point for a lot of people. It has also a nice array of excellent ports. You can play it on the 360, excellent. You can play it on Steam, very good. And you can play it now on the Switch, another excellent port. The PS2 port, not so excellent, unfortunately. But it has 3 other amazing ports, so it has a very strong legacy. It has all these cool arranges. It's just a really well put together package. And if you're not a big fan of the arcade scoring system, you can always jump over to one of the arrange mode scoring, which is also very well done. So you can't go wrong. I think S tier easily. Ibarra, there's like 2 Ibarras here, so I don't know. We'll just treat them the same because I know there's like different versions of Ibarra, but I'm not that familiar with them. Ibarra, I'm also going to put into I'll just put both versions of the game in there. Oh, there's 3 Ibarras. Bam, put them all in there. 4 Yagawa games. They all sort of end up in the B tier. I didn't really see that coming, but it makes sense. I think Ibarra, there's so much potential in this game. It's supposed to be the follow-up to Battle Garega. I don't think it holds up to Garega as far as overall quality of gameplay or anything like that, but it is really cool, and I think it has, I want to put it at like top of the B tier. Well, no, Guange. Let's order the B tier a little bit here. So it would be like Guange, Raid. No, Raid before Guange. And then Ibarra, or King Sweets, and then just random Ibarras in the back. Yeah, that seems about right for my B tier. The PS2 port is spotty. It has some cool stuff going on in it. Like, it performs fairly well and everything, but it has this horrible visual filter that makes the game look like garbage. I don't know what's going on with the game, because when you emulate it in MAME, it kind of looks shitty too, as far as like the graphics themselves, like the sprites and the level design are beautiful, but there's some sort of weird thing over the top of it that makes it kind of look messy and ugly, and I can't even understand what exactly is going on with it, unfortunately. But I do wish we'd see a better port of Ibarra, and I feel like with a lot of these B tier games, if they had a really solid port and that really helped introduce them to more players and revive interest in them, I could see them jumping up into the A tier. But as things stand right now, I think Ibarra B tier is very fair. B Storm, good old B Storm. I'm not going to put anyone in the F tier because I don't think anyone deserves to go down there. I'd put B Storm in the E tier. Now, B Storm is a very fun like meme game, and it's fun to talk about, but it is pretty damn broken. And I can't really see people being able to invest in it long term. I like to call it like one of the greatest ROM hacks of all time. So in like the ROM hack world, it's like an S tier ROM hack, but as far as actual game, probably much lower compared to the rest of Cave. Though it is fun to meme about and has a killer soundtrack. As fun as it is to meme and say B Storm's like the best Cave game and everything, like people love to do that. But I would put it, just objectively speaking, much lower down. And Cave pretty much like to ignore it. Though, fun fact, I'm pretty sure B-Storm were really influential with helping Cave because they had to switch over from their old hardware onto the PGM, which gave you Ketsui, DOJ, and Galuda. All of them were on PGM. And I believe like B-Storm was incredibly successful monetarily and helped the company develop the rest of the game. So in real world, it could be up there because of that, but gameplay wise, I think it's in the E tier. Let's do Espgaluda 2. This one is a tough one to rank. The funny thing about Espgaluda 2, I'd put it here at the back of the A tier. The thing about Espgaluda 2 is you could argue that it has better gameplay than Espgaluda 1. I think that's arguable, but it isn't definitive. And it has amazing graphics, amazing soundtrack, has all these awesome features. It seems like it has all the elements to be an S tier game. It seems to have them all. It seems like this should be one of the more popular Cave shmup. Like, why wouldn't it be? It has cool characters. It's kind of a little bit more Toho-y. It has great music, a great scoring system. It's got the nice bullet slowdown mechanic and everything. The difficulty is nice and ramped up. The problem with Espgaluda 2 and why it isn't in the S tier is that I think it's sort of a compromised design where it's like trying to do two different things. And so it's kind of like stuck in between those two different goals, where Espgaluda 1 has a single focus, which is bring new players into the genre in a fun, fair way, and also having some scoring depth that people can sink their teeth into. And I think Galuda delivers that to a T. Galuda is very successful at what it set out to do. Galuda 2 is like trying to do two different things. It's trying to continue Galuda 1, so it's trying to continue the whole accessibility thing, bring you into the genre. But at the same time, Cave being Cave, they're like, well, let's ramp this bitch up and make it like way harder and way more complicated and add in all these crazy scoring systems and everything like that. So it's like serving two masters type thing where it can't really figure out which way to go, but nonetheless, still a very excellent game. And I think it is a foreshadow to Futari. I think a lot of ideas that they came up with in Galuda 2 end up making their way into Futari, which is a very good thing. So I don't think it's as popular for score play as it would seem, but it is an excellent game nonetheless. Dangun Fever Run. I have no idea where to put Dangun Fever Run. No freaking clue. Put it in the question tier. I don't know where to put this game because it's crazy. I will stick it because it's part of the Cave experimental phase with Esperade and Wange. I'll stick it in front of Ibarra. It is a very good game. It feels like what Cave decided is, okay, we used to be Toplan and we had this Toplan influence. Let's Toplan, but super hard. Let's make it Toplan crazy mode. And that's what it seems like. It seems like a Toplan game on crack. It's a really cool game. Really hard, too. Very unique. They never really did anything like it, but Dangun Fever Run is one of those shmups in the Cave library where a lot of people who dislike Cave, there's a surprising high amount of people out there who dislike Cave for whatever reason, you can usually get them to sort of say, okay, I hate Cave and all that they stand for, but I will make an exception for Dangun Fever Run because it's so funky and fresh. So I think it belongs right about here. Don't get mad at me where I put Dangun because I have no idea where to place this game. It's not S tier, but it could be in the A tier maybe somewhere, but I'd put it right there. So there you go, Dangun Fever Run. DOJ, Black Label, White Label, just put them together because there's just one on the tier list thing here. Yeah. If you've seen my greatest shmups of all time, I consider this the greatest shmup ever made. Amazing triumph of game design. I think it's kind of criminal that when you go ahead and you look at like greatest of all times lists, you know, when they talk about Legend of Zelda and Super Mario Bros. And what's Portal, like they'll put in like shit like that. I mean, Portal's a cool game and everything, but greatest of all time is Portal. They never put a shmup in there, and if they do, it's not going to be DOJ, but I think on those lists, it should be like number 1 DOJ or number 2. It should be up there. An amazing game, not a lot of flaws, if hardly any at all. And then it has 2 awesome versions, White Label and Black Label, both worth your time, both distinctively good in their own ways. It's a very cool game. There's actually kind of a middle label. You could call it Gray Label or Dodonpachi 3, which is kind of like a later version of White Label, but before Black Label. It's pretty cool. Anyway, DOJ, no surprise there, right? And then remember, I'm trying to be more objective-ish. Pro Gear, I think Pro Gear belongs in the S tier. Maybe a bit controversial compared to it should probably be in the A tier, but the problem with Pro Gear being in the A tier is it's just so freaking popular and well made and influential. Again, a lot of people, when you say, oh, what's your favorite shmup, horizontal shmup, a lot of people say Pro Gear. It's incredibly popular. Probably also because Capcom published it, so you actually see it in places, whereas most cave games, you never see them. You could actually see Pro Gear somewhere because Capcom actually published it. Very well made, very unique in comparison to the other cave library. Its scoring system with the rings and the checkpoints. It's also pretty accessible to get into. A lot of people really love this game. There is a ton of score play around it as well. It's a very popular game for score play, so I think it belongs in the S tier, to be honest, for all those reasons. I'm sure the arcade version is incredibly popular. Again, Capcom maybe had a hand in that. Dangun Fever in Part 2. No, there's just 2 Danguns in here, so I'll put them together. Donpachi, the very first cave shmup. A tier. Now I'd stick it right there. Right between the Galudas, you get Donpachi. So Donpachi, I'm like breaking Plasmo's heart with some of these choices. Donpachi is a very important game, obviously, because it is the beginning of Cave, and it already has a lot of things going for it that you could see being staples of Cave games. Like it has the concentrated laser system, it has chaining, though not very good chaining. It's a really powerful blueprint of what Cave would become. The thing about Donpachi is it's kind of stuck, you know, being the first game, of course, it's kind of stuck between the Toplan style, like Batsugun, and DDP. And it feels like Cave really begins with DDP. Like, that's Cave, right? That is so Cave. But Donpachi is kind of that middle ground where I could see if you like Toplan style shmups more than the rest of Cave games, Donpachi might be like up here for you, might be your favorite. But if you like that classic Cave feel, I think Donpachi is a nice blueprint towards that, but it isn't full on that yet, you know. And it gets lots of props, of course, being the first Cave game and being so groundbreaking for a lot of those ideas. Like I said, Akai Katana, like Dangun Fever, and I have no freaking idea where to place Akai Katana. I don't know. This is the Cave game that I haven't played, though I have it on the 360. I haven't played for some reason. I will get to it soon, probably because it's horizontal. I have to be in a very specific mood to play horizontal shmup, but I have no idea where to place this thing. I will stick it. I feel like it was more successful than the Yagawa games because you could actually buy this in a store in America. So if you went to a store, you could buy a Kai Katana for like 20 bucks. You might still be able to do that if you go to the, you know, like an old video game shop, maybe a really old GameStop or something. You still might be able to find like a used copy of a Kai Katana in there. So it had really good home console. I don't know about the sales, but it had reach. And it's very popular among players. It's kind of a follow-up to Pro Gear, though it still feels pretty underexplored in comparison to the rest of the library. I do believe it has all these cool different versions and everything, different ROM versions that weren't ported or something like that. I think that's a game, like, don't get mad at me about Kai Katana because I don't exactly know where to place it. Death Smiles 2, I didn't mean to leave it so late because this is probably my most controversial pick. I think Death Smiles 2 is like the C tier. I think the visuals are a horrible downgrade to the rest of the Cave games. The visuals, I think, are absolute crap. What's funny is people who really like Death Smiles 2 visuals seem to also be like Castle Shikigami fans. So it's like maybe if you're a Castle Shikigami type person, this is like the game you've been waiting for that. And I do know people non-ironically do like the game quite a bit. Like Iconoclast put it really high in some list of his a while back. He's a big fan of it. Plasmo says he's a big fan of it, and I'm not sure if he's trolling or being serious. So, but I think Death Smiles 2 is not a great follow-up to the original Death Smiles. It doesn't quite stand up to it as much. You could argue maybe like the scoring system might be a bit better or something, but visually I don't ever play it because it's such an eyesore. I refuse to play it. So that's my placing for Death Smiles 2. And that's, I think, pretty objectively fair. I don't think it's very popular. No one ever talks about Death Smiles 2 other than, like I said, certain like small sectors of people that are fans of it. Death Smiles 1 absolutely eclipses it. Everyone talks about Death Smiles 1. Much, much more popular. And I think for good reason. And then the final on the list, Futari, which I'll put right behind Ketsui. I think Futari is an amazing shmup, excellent. Not a whole lot you can say about it, really, that's a flaw. And of course it has all these amazing modes. It is such a fun watch for the score play, and its ultra mode is famous. It's a very influential shmup as well. I think less popular than the original Mushi, but that could just be because it never got ported to Steam. I think if this bad boy made its way to Steam, it would be a much more high-profile game. But still being stuck on the Xbox 360, it still does some serious damage, especially since the Xbox 360 port is so excellent. It was actually done by M2, so if you're wondering why the Futari port's so good, M2 did it. That's why it's so good. And it's the only shmup on 360 that I'm aware of that allows you to disable VSync and runs at 2 frames of input lag, which is a big bonus on top of all the extra modes and bonuses. You could buy Futari on 360 and just play it for years and be perfectly satisfied. There's so much to dig into. It's so deep, the scoring system, and the counter stops have been defeated. Gus came up with a way to get around the counter stop, ironically thanks to the 360 port. So this is my more objective-ish tier list when it comes to cave games, as far as how I think they would rank in terms of people's opinions about them and their overall popularity and their score play activity and everything like that. Though again, this is not definitive. This is just me sort of going off the cuff, so don't get too mad at me. But now, the fun part, the Mark tier list. So this is my personal favorite shmups. So now we don't have to worry about trying to be objective-ish or anything like that. This is just pure what appeals to my design sensibilities, what appeals to me. So here we go, Akai Katana. So being honest, I haven't played a lot of Akai Katana. It doesn't really seem to catch me as much as many other cave games, though it does visually look awesome. The soundtrack is great. So I'll put it in the B tier because I think it needs to be explored more. But the fact that I haven't played it, probably again just because it's horizontal, mostly the reason why. Horizontal puts you down a tier. Damn you. B tier. Fever Run, B tier. I'd put Fever Run over Akai Katana though. Death Smiles 2, F tier. I hate Death Smiles 2. I hate this game because it looks like shit. That's why I hate it. And people can say, oh, its scoring system's amazing and all this stuff, but I cannot get over the visuals. I'm a very shallow shmupper, and so it's ugly, and therefore I hate it. Death Smiles 1, S tier, my favorite horizontal shmup of all time. I love Death Smiles 1. Beautiful game. The gameplay is actually really fun. I love the whole turning left and right. I don't know why more horizontal shmups don't do that, to be honest. It seems like an obvious design decision, but Death Smiles remains one of the few horizontal shmups where you do that, where you turn side to side. I love the level design. I love all the different modes. It's one of my favorite shmups. DFK, A tier. I'm actually a pretty big fan of DFK, but it's not among my favorites. It could be here, except it has so many cool arranged modes, it bumps it up. Espaguluda 1, B tier. I'd put it at top of B tier though. I like Espaguluda quite a bit, but I'm not as much of a fan of the Espaguluda series as other similar games to it, which we'll talk about here shortly. But Espaguluda 1 I do like quite a bit, so it's like top of the B tier. Esperade, S tier. I love Esperade, and I can't really fully justify why I like this game so much, but I do. I love the visuals, I love the style, I love the actual level design and boss design and everything like that. And the thing about Esperade that's kind of interesting is that it's a lot less heavy on popcorn enemies and sort of screen control type things like you get in a lot of other cave games. You actually fight mostly like bigger mid-range enemies almost all the time, and the patterns are really unique, and the visuals and everything like that, the soundtrack, I really like Esperade a lot. And I know it's kind of a little bit divisive. Some people really like it, some people don't, but it's absolutely one of my favorite. Pork, C tier. I would say most of the Yagawa ones, like Pork and Pink Sweets, well, we have Pink Sweets, I put them in the C tier. Like, I don't dislike them or anything, and of course these are all cave games, so I like them all just in general. But as far as like picking favorites, I don't really ever sit down and say, I must play Mochi Mochi port. And I do know some players are like that. I personally am not. Maybe if the port was better, maybe if there was a bit easier way to play it that wasn't so janky with like groovy MAME or kind of crappy ports, that could change things pretty drastically. But as it stands right now, I hardly ever play them. So I have to be honest here. So I'll put them in the C tier as personal favorites. Same, I like Ibarra about the same. I do like Ibarra the best of the Kamigawas though, by a good margin. So I would put Ibarra high C tier. You know what? I'd probably put it after Dangan, maybe after Kaikatana, right there. There you go, Ibarra. Donpachi. Donpachi is like here, just because I don't really like the Toplan style as much as Cave. And Donpachi to me is like got this bad sequel syndrome where whenever I play Donpachi, about 5 minutes in, I'm like, why don't I just play Donpachi? Like, because all the things I like about Donpachi are improved in Donpachi, and all the things that I don't care for in Donpachi are removed from Donpachi. So it's like a cool game to play, but the problem is I always just yearn to play Donpachi whenever I fire it up. Mushi, where does Mushi go? I wonder what people think. S tier. I love the original Mushi. I'd actually put it above Raid, actually. It's one of my favorite shmup, easily. The original Mushi, how crazy it is, how jank it is, the scoring system, all that. I forgive all of it because I love the level design of the game so much. I love the visuals. I love the music. Everything about it, just the vibe of it, I really like. The original Mushi is one of my favorite shmups, so easily S tier. Pro Gear. This one's difficult to rank because it has that whole problem of being a horizontal shmup, but I'm kidding a little bit. But as far as horizontal shmups, like a lot of people would say it's better than Death Smiles as a game, but I like Death Smiles so much more. So, but I do like Pro Gear quite a bit. I put it in the A tier, like the end of the A tier. I like it more than Espluda, but not a whole lot more. So we'll put it at the A tier. SDOJ, I do not know where to put this freaking game. I am allowed to reserve judgments because every time I play SDOJ, I have this like syndrome with it where I begin and I'm like, this is awesome. I love this game. And then the lag hits like 10 minutes later and then I get really frustrated. And so I don't really play the game a lot. Playing it in Xenia isn't that great. I tried to see if I could get my hands on the exit version just to try, but was unsuccessful. So I can't even report my feelings on the exit version because I was not able to get a review unit or borrow a review unit for a bit to try out. So I don't know. I'll put it back of A because it's to be decided. Because I kind of get the feeling if it had a really good port, it would be up here. But until that point in time, or until someone dumps the ROM, we'll leave it at the back of A. Guange, I love Guange. It's one of my favorite shmups. I would say I like it better than Death Smiles and Mushi, but I like Mushi more than Death Smiles actually. So I'll put it like that. I love Guange. You saw me do my run of it. I did a live demonstration of it for a Japanese score play or Japanese shmup relay event that was really fun. I had to play the kind of crappy 360 port of it. The 360 port's just missing slowdown and has some extra lag, but overall still very fun. I think it's coming to the Mister, if not already on the Mister. It's kind of in limbo there, but it should be on the Mister soon, so that'll be really cool. Of course, you can play it really well in Shmup Archers, which is my preferred way to play. What I love about this game is I love how insane it is. This is the type of thing that I really appreciate about the game, is that it has a game-long chain that it forces you to do the entire game, and if you drop it, it's like Donpachi, but even crazier. But that being said, the chaining system is also more lenient, so in some ways it's kind of easier than Donpachi, even though you have to chain the entire game. And then the fact that you can refill all your extends at the end, that saved me during a few runs, and definitely during my live run. It's a really cool game, and also being on foot, that's a big deal to me actually. I love the idea of making a shmup where you're on foot and like you have to go around the terrain and everything, but it scrolls still. Very, very cool. I really wish we saw more of Guange, like a sequel to it, like really honing in some of these ideas. As it stands though, it's one of my favorite shmups, and I do plan to play it for score one day and try to get a big old score in it because its chaining system is just so silly. B-Storm, I'll put it there. I actually don't like, I probably like B-Storm. Yeah, I like B-Storm more than Decimiles too, so I'll put her right there. Like I said, it's because it reminds me of like a ROM hack from hell. I kind of like it, but it's still not the best game. Futari, I love Futari. I like it more than the original Mushi. I probably like it more than Guange too. You don't really probably get that impression because I don't play Futari a lot on the channel because I'm sort of saving it because I plan to one day play a lot of Futari, but I want to sort of clear up my schedule. I need to get through the Ketsui Mote and then get through Dodonpachi. Then after that, I'm probably going to attack either Guange or Futari next, as far as like trying to really sink my teeth into it. But yeah, Futari, I really like the gameplay a lot. I think is a great continuation of what they came up with Mushi. Basically, what Futari is they did Mushi Stage 5, which is my favorite stage in Mushi, but they decided, let's make the whole game Stage 5. Let's just do the whole game as Stage 5, with giant cancels and all this crazy shit happening. Crazy soundtrack, crazy pace. I like that they added in the second character, and they got rid of the whole, like, wide shot, the wide, the medium, the narrow shot thing. Glad they, like, no, screw that shit. I like what they did here. No super shot as well. I think that's great. Ketsui, S tier. I like Ketsui a little bit more than Futari. You all should probably know this by now, as often as you see me stream Ketsui, talk about Ketsui, and trying to get the Mote and Ketsui. So definitely very high tier in my opinion. Espgaluda 2. Espgaluda 2 kind of gets the shaft. I probably like it right here. I like original Espgaluda more than Espgaluda 2. Like I was saying before, the problem with Espgaluda 2 that I have is that it feels like it's kind of trying to do two different things at once, and so it kind of gets stuck in between them. But maybe if I played it more, that it might move up in my list, because it is pretty Futari-like in a lot of ways too, though. So I could see, after I really get into Futari, I could see myself appreciating Galuda 2 more. And now the obvious choice is, what do I do? Where do you go? Where does Black Label go? Goes right here. Dodonpachi DOJ is my second favorite shmup of all time. I actually do like it more than Ketsui. It's like Dodonpachi, but better, right? It's just amazing. So yeah, it's very high on my list. But then, the big kahuna, of course, if you are at all a fan of my channel, this is not slightly surprising to you. Dodonpachi is my favorite shmup of all time. I think it's the ultimate Mark shmup. Everything that it does that other people hate, I kind of like. I love how insane it is. I love how brutal it is. I love how, like, the chaining system is just tight enough to feel incredibly rewarding, but it's not crazy insane like the original Donpachi where you just can't do it. It's just possible enough to drive you crazy. And the thing about Dodonpachi is it seems to destroy the hearts of shmup players. Like, you enter Dodonpachi and then you just get kicked out of the genre. It just crushes your soul. It just seems like one of the most brutal, insane shmups. I know I really like the game because when I see other people play it, I start to get like jealous of them a little bit. Like, hey, put that down. This is my game type of thing. So yeah, definitely my favorite game. Possibly one of my favorite games of all time. Definitely my favorite shmup of all time. And yeah, so this is my personal tier list as far as my favorite cave shmups. I hope you all had a fun time. I did not expect this video to be as long as it was. I thought it'd be like a 20-minute video. But if you want to do tier list proper, this is what you're in for. I hope you all enjoyed, and please, like, subscribe, share. I'm really happy with the growth of the channel, and I would really love to see that growth continue. And also, please check out the Electric Underground Reddit. I'm going to start posting, like, articles and crap on there, and I've been posting some really useful stuff on there already. And so I think it'd be a great resource and also a great place to see really cool stuff. So even if you're not super inclined for Reddit, I would definitely recommend checking out the Electric Underground Reddit. And adios, everyone. So thank you to the $5 patrons: 172 PCT Water, Ukshay Wadker, Dingo, Another Joe, Anthony A, Aaron Solis, Ben, Borgie22, Brian Reboot, Brian Shiver, Chris Yuzefovich, Chronic Burnout 3, Corio, Danielle Savage, Darren Griffin, Delta Tango 6, Disco Stas Leia, DJ 420 Praise It, Entropy, Eric H, FCK, Frank Carter, Full Set, Retro Schmupper, Geriatric Don Maku, Hausu, Ilya, Kiwi, JLab, JB RPG, Joe Angelo, John Kelly, Gameboy Guru, K, K2, Kikoman589, Larridge, Malaise, Mark Toms, Maz, Minung, Mechalin, Mitch LY, Queen Charlene, Nathaniel Davis, and Electron, Neon Dagger Games, Okla Kugels, Philip Mason, Portal63, Rattlecat, Raul, Real Skeen, Shen Sinzensky, SLW, The Boot Rex, The Real Ikuzo, The Old Bensta, TRM, Sugumo, Twilight, Ishi, Plasmo, and Yutsukaya. Thanks for watching.